company CEO and Super Bowl champion Matt Birk is a 15-year veteran of the National Football League, the former director of football development for the National Football League, and currently serves as a special assistant to the NFL. A native of St. Paul, Minnesota, Matt was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in 1998 and was a key off-season acquisition of the Baltimore Ravens in 2009. A six-time NFL Pro Bowl selection and two-time All-Pro, Matt proved to be an undisputed leader on the field, and because of that, he was named the sixth smartest athlete by Sporting News. But more importantly, he has established a legacy of community service that will last far beyond his years of football. A graduate of Harvard University with a degree in economics, Matt was the recipient of the 2011 Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year Award for his excellence both on and off the field. You know, my dear friend Matt is here today to take you on a very personal journey that will help you discover the real choices that will put your personal life and your business career on the trajectory for greatness. With his 15 years of experience as an offensive lineman, I'm sure that Matt will share with us tonight not only how he prevented Joe Flacco to be killed. For the girls, Joe Flacco was the quarterback of the Ravens when they won the Super Bowl, just in case. Ha, 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 yeah, you know. But he will share the highs and the lows of what it means to live with greatness at the highest level. Matt and his wife Adriana are the proud parents of 8 children, 5 boys and 3 girls. In conclusion, you know, I always like to ask questions so that's it. You can say that you actually know Matt Birk. Matt, who were your most influential persons? My parents and Mrs. Jeannie Sullivan, my 5th grade teacher. What is the last book that you read? Chasing Excellence. Can you give me a few words that can describe who you are? Easygoing to a point. What is your favorite place that you like to hide or hopefully to retire? It's my cabin in Hayward, Wisconsin. What are your favorite hobbies? Golf and fishing. And what is your favorite food? Well, you know, you remember with Birk Sorber, he told us Mexican food, and that was very disappointing for an Italian guy. Today, Matt says, pizza! There you go, we got it. And in conclusion, how do you want to be remembered? Selfless. Please welcome my dear friend, Matt Birk.
Thank you. I don't know if that was an introduction or a eulogy. Those clowns. It's great to be here. Any football fans here? Just a couple. I was kind of expecting more, but that's cool. Any Ravens fans by chance? We're close to DC. All right, good. No Steelers fans? Go Pats? All right, I'll speak slowly so you can keep up, all right? No, hey. Really, I mean, honestly, it's really great to be here. As someone who's 42 years old and a proud Catholic, it's great to be at Catholic University. I hope most of you are Catholic. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I do, and then I'm going to do what all old people do. I'm going to give you some advice, and you can, choose to do with it what you want. Then you can pick up your cell phones after that. All right. So I was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, raised Catholic. Was born to two devout Catholic parents. My father actually spent a little time in the seminary, So lucky for me that he dropped out. And went to Catholic school my whole life, was taught by the nuns. When you asked the question, Mario, who most influential people in my life, I said my 5th grade teacher, Jenny Sullivan, who I no doubt is in heaven right now, but she was the teacher who taught us all the prayers, made us memorize them, made us write them down, and just a fantastic woman. So I didn't start playing football until I was in the 10th grade. I'd kind of tried every other sport up to that point, and I loved sports. But I was the fat kid, I was slow, I was weak, I wasn't that coordinated, but I loved playing sports. And where I grew up in a time and in a place where, we just played, and there was always a place for kids to play. It's not like these days where, we're trying to figure out when in 3rd grade who's going to be on the Olympic team. So I wasn't good at sports, always played, and then switched high schools. And in 10th grade, some of my buddies said, who were already at this high school, they said, hey, you should go out for football. You've grown, you're kind of taller now and bigger, and be a good way for you to make some friends before the school year started, because practice started before school started. So I said, all right, what the heck, I'll play football for 1 year. And who knew? I didn't know, but I found out that I had a knack for getting in people's way and grabbing onto them, because that's essentially what an offensive lineman does, right? Nobody grows up wanting to be an offensive lineman, okay? But you got to use the gifts that God gave you. So I kind of found my niche, or my knack, if you will, and wasn't heavily recruited out of high school, but was a pretty good student, and was decent enough at football that I was accepted. It's still kind of weird to say. I was accepted to Harvard University, even though I was the 6th smartest athlete named by the Sporting News. I think that's a pretty unscientific poll, and there might not be a lot of smart athletes either. I don't know, but went to Harvard. So it's kind of funny back then. I mean, I don't know how everybody grew up differently. How I grew up was my parents pulled up to the airport. I had 2 duffel bags with me, and they kind of dropped me at the curb and said, good luck. We'll come visit when we can. So I went off to college, and that first week practiced football all week, and woke up Sunday morning. It was an off day for us, and was in a dorm room with 7 other guys that I'd only known for a week, and I'm kind of looking around and waiting to see if somebody's going to go to Mass. Nobody was talking about going to Mass, so I didn't go. And that was the first time in my life that I didn't go to Mass. And because not by choice. I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't have a choice. We just went. Didn't matter where we were. We'd be camping up in northern Minnesota somewhere. We'd get in the car on Sunday morning. My dad would pull into the town. We'd pull up in front of the Catholic church in the town, and it would just happen to be 10 minutes before Mass started, like every time. Somehow, some way, he had an internal clock, or knew the Mass schedule of every Catholic church in the state of Minnesota. So you guys didn't grow up without Google. That's very impressive. He just knew. So missed Mass that first week, and I felt pretty guilty. Go through practice the second week, wake up the next Sunday morning, didn't go to Mass. Wasn't as hard that time. Got into a new pattern, a new habit real quick. So a couple months go by, and my mom comes out to visit. And my mom grew up on a dairy farm in northern Minnesota. I don't think she ever thought she'd have a son that went to Harvard, especially not this son. So I went there, and she's very proud, right? I'm showing her around. It's a lot like your campus. I got to tour your campus today. I went all over. I think I covered just about all of it. We got, Harvard's got a lot of old buildings and some statues, and it's cool. It's great. And so I ended the tour purposely. I ended in the middle of Harvard Yard, which is kind of like the spot. And I said, Mom, there's Widener Library. That's the biggest library in the world. They have the most books of any library in that building, which back then was a big deal. And I said, that's where I go and study at night. Okay? That was the first lie I told her, all right? The second lie, and I said, there's Memorial Church. I said, that's where I go to church on Sundays. That's where I go to Mass. She goes, oh, that's great. So then I left, and I went to football practice, and later on that night, I met her for dinner. I said, well, how's the rest of your day? She goes, oh, it was nice. I went into Widener Library. I said, oh, yeah, it's awesome. There's lots of great places in there to study. She said, yeah, I know. And then I went into Memorial Church. I said, oh, yeah, Mass is great. You should hear the music on Sundays, Mom. She says, yeah, that's not a Catholic church. Now, that would have been good to know before I lied to my mom. But when I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota, it's a pretty homogenous place. I just assumed everybody was white, Irish, and Catholic. I had no idea about other faiths, and I didn't know about my faith either. right? So I felt bad, right? I'm sure we've all done it. We've all lied to our mothers. Feels really bad. Feels even worse when you get caught. But I didn't feel bad enough to start going to Mass again. You know, she flew home, and I just kept not going to Mass. So this is my pattern through college, right? I go home. Of course, I go to Mass with my family. But I was, if you asked me, if people asked me, what religion are you? I'd say, well, I'm Catholic. I identified with being Catholic, but I wasn't practicing Catholic. And of course, I kind of went through the old, come on, God, I'm a good person. And I went to Catholic school, so I know enough about being Catholic, and I know what I'm supposed to do. But God, everybody's telling me how good I'm doing here. I'm at one of the most prestigious universities in the world. I'm playing football. I'm not flunking out, wasn't getting straight A's, not flunking out. Like everywhere I go, every time I go home, everyone's telling me how good I'm doing. We're good, God. I'm busy. So then I get drafted by the Minnesota Vikings in the 6th round in 1998. Now I grew up in Minnesota, was a Vikings fan my entire life, and obviously you don't go to Harvard because you think you're going to go to the NFL. It just kind of happened. But then it happened that I'm going to play for my hometown team. So now I go home, and now I'm like a celebrity, right? This is everywhere I go. People, oh, you're playing for the Vikings. Gosh, pat me on the back. I was such a big deal that there is a hamburger named after me in a bar in St. Paul, Minnesota, all right? If you're a lineman and you have a hamburger named after you, that's about as big as it gets. There's no greater honor they could bestow upon a lineman. Maybe if they name a pizza after you, that would be pretty cool too. I'm working towards that, right? But again, it was kind of this whole deal where hey, God, I'm playing for the Minnesota Vikings. God, I'm a good person. I wasn't doing it. I was only looking out for number one. I wasn't stepping on number two, but I was only looking out for number one. I had bought all in to the ways of the world. And here I am a few years after a few years of playing for the Minnesota Vikings. I was making more money than I even knew what to do with. We didn't have direct deposit back then, okay? This is a long time ago, all right? I would get my paychecks, and I'd literally open them up, and I would laugh how big they were. I was making more money than I ever thought. I had the biggest contract in the history of the NFL for a center. Everywhere I went, I'd walk into a crowded restaurant. They didn't matter, hour wait, I'd be seated right away. I could go get a free hamburger at the bar with my name on it. I was successful by worldly standards beyond any dreams I ever had. I was the fat, slow kid who, I didn't mention when I was in grade school, they thought I had a learning disability. Mrs. Sullivan thought I had a learning disability. I was like, this is unbelievable. And yet, there was a hole in my heart. I had more than I ever thought that I could have, more than I knew the world could ever have to offer. And I was unhappy. I think I was borderline probably depressed. And it's funny, God gives you, He gives you what you need exactly when you need it. So I met this woman, and I became quite smitten with her, and I ended up marrying her. And when I married my wife, I had a drug problem. My wife drugged me back to church. And I started to kind of figure out this might be what I'm missing. See, I've been playing for a few years in the NFL, and what a lot of you might be surprised to know is the NFL is a very spiritual thing. The locker room is a very spiritual place. People say, well, what do you mean? You see all these guys, you read about them in the papers when they do something bad, and you see them out there on the field, and they're trash talking, and they're trying to take each other's heads off. That doesn't look real Christian. Every team I ever played on in the NFL had a team chaplain. We had players' Bible studies on Mondays and Wednesdays, and couples studies on Thursdays, and night before games, we'd have players' fellowship in the hotel. Three of the four teams I played for, three of the four head coaches I played for, the head coach was Catholic. So we had Catholic Mass. It's probably the only, not the only, but one of the only workplaces in America where I think you're probably encouraged to grow in your faith. And that's because football's really hard. It's hard. On a day-to-day basis, it's hard. It's a grind, right? And you step out on that field on Sundays, it's scary. It's dangerous. Anybody that tells you that it's not is lying. Everybody's a little scared. And in the NFL, you kind of have these really high highs and you have really low lows. There's really no middle of the road. It's not like you come home from a game on Sunday and your wife says, well, how was the game? It was all right. No, you either win and it's great and everybody's telling you how great you are and they want to buy you a drink or buy you this and that. And if you lose, then everybody, says you stink and you're a horrible person and your dog's ugly and, you should just, that's how it is. That's how it is. High highs and low lows. And so I know so many, in my time in the NFL, I joke, I say football's saved more people than Billy Graham. Because sooner or later, you play football long enough, you're going to find God. And I was feeling that too. I just got married and I said, all right, I got to figure this out. I didn't go to player Bible study. I didn't go to fellowship study. I had a roommate, his name was Corey Withrow. You probably never heard of Corey Withrow. Corey Withrow was a backup offensive lineman. We were roommates on the road. So even on the road and at home games in the NFL, you stay in a hotel the night before. Even on home games, because they just want to get you in the hotel and they want to lock you down so you don't go out and do anything stupid the night before the game. So we just hang out in the hotel room, watch movies, whatever, and then you'd have team meetings. And Corey would always get up a half hour before team meetings, and he would go to the players' Bible study. So he got up the first day, and he grabbed his Bible. He said, hey, you want to go to Bible study? And I said, no, I'm good. I'm thinking to myself, I don't go to Bible study. I'm Catholic, Well, you can laugh. That's a joke. That's actually a joke, right? Because Catholics put the Bible together. But, all right, not all the jokes are funny. So I was like, that's how little I knew about my faith. I was like, no, I don't go to Bible study. Catholics don't go to Bible study, right? And somehow I still considered myself Catholic, even though I hadn't really been practicing for years. So he did this every single Saturday night, very respectfully. Hey, you want to go to Bible study? No, I'm good. So I get married, and I said, okay, I'm starting to figure out my faith a little bit. So first game of the year, he said, hey, you want to go to Bible study? And I said, yeah. Actually, I do. And he was like, really? It only took you 4 years? I said, yeah, let's go. So I walked down to Bible study, and I know none of these other guys are Catholic. I consider myself Catholic. We were with our team chaplain. He says, hey, first Bible study of the year. This is great. There's about 12 guys here. He says, let's go around. I want everybody to talk about the day that you accepted Jesus Christ as your personal Savior. Okay? By the way, if you're not Catholic, you don't take offense to this talk. I'm just telling you my story, all right? It might get a little uncomfortable for you. So I said, and I'm thinking, except Jesus Christ is my personal Savior. I'd kind of heard that language before, but not in the Catholic Church, not growing up. I thought, oh, this is interesting. So luckily, I was sitting here, and he started on this side of the room. We were sitting in a half circle. So we went around, and every guy was talking about the day that they accepted Jesus Christ as their personal Savior. They had a date and a year, and it was like this moment, right, where it just all happened. And I'm like, what am I going to say, So finally it gets to me, and I said, well, I'm a Catholic. I guess I've accepted Jesus Christ as my personal Savior since day one, since my parents had me baptized in the Catholic Church. And I could see that team chaplain was kind of silly Catholics, And so, we wrapped up the Bible study, and he held me back for a little bit, and we're just kind of chatting. This is all first Bible study I'd ever been to. I was feeling like I'd accomplished something, and we started talking a little bit, and I said, well, what religion are you? Right? I can't remember what religion he said he was, but he said he used to be Catholic. And then he said the priest said something that contradicted the Bible, and then he left the Catholic Church, and I was like, okay. But then it was very evident to me that he had some questions for me. He wanted to challenge me on some things about the Catholic Church, right? He had an axe to grind. And I didn't know anything really about the Catholic Church, I guess because the Catholic faith was given to me as a child, but like we tend to do with a lot of gifts, we don't really appreciate them. So I said, he fired a couple questions at me, and I said, yeah, I don't know the answers, but I'm gonna get back to you, right? And so then I'd go home and I'd read and I'd ask people, and I was kind of on this active quest for truth back to the faith at that point anyways. And then I'd come back and I'd give him answers, and I think they're pretty good answers, and I could see he'd get upset and he'd give me more questions, and right? So anyway, so this goes on for a while until I think I really got to the point where I claimed the Catholic faith as my own, which I think we all have to do if we're born Catholic. But it was kind of funny, this rub that I encountered, with a fellow Christian about my faith. And being challenged on it was great because it made me dive in. It made me to really learn about my faith as an adult, and like I said, claim it as my own. So, what's great about the greatest thing for me about playing in the NFL is what it helped me find my faith again. And I don't know how. I mean, I'll tell you this. I'll guarantee this for all of you. I mean, I consider myself to have lived a very charmed life. Hopefully, you all feel the same way. I'm sure there's been some bad things that have happened to some people in here, but it's guaranteed that sooner or later, bad things are going to happen. I mean, really bad things, worse than losing a football game or, losing the AFC Championship game in the last second to the Patriots, right? That felt bad at the time, but things a lot worse than that. And sooner or later, life is going to bring you to your knees, and so you might as well start there, right? And that's what so as I went on through my career, and where my faith grew and my faith strengthened, it was kind of funny because, I mean, it used to be everything. My whole identity was wrapped up in being a football player. All I cared about was how did I play and how's the media talking about me and how much is my contract. That's where it all was. And when I started to come back to the faith and remember my identity as that I'm a child of God, and my purpose on earth is not to play football and not to win Super Bowls, but to know, to love, and to serve God, football became less important to me. Didn't mean I didn't work as hard as I possibly could, which I prided myself on, which God calls us to do, to work, give your best effort towards your vocation. But I started also to play a lot better. And the pressure didn't get to me. There was a lot less pressure in the NFL with my performance. So go on towards the end of my career, and one day I'm playing in Baltimore, and my phone rings, and it's the Archbishop of Baltimore, which I don't know how he got my number. He told me my pastor at our church gave him my number, and I thought, man, those priests, they get away with murder sometimes, giving out my number. And he asked me to go speak at the March for Life in Maryland. And now this time I consider myself a practicing Catholic. I can say and feel like I'm not a phony, that yeah, I'm a Catholic. But he wanted me to go speak at the March for Life in Maryland at the State House. I'd never really stepped out publicly with my faith. I didn't hide from it. I didn't try to hide it. It just wasn't. And this is 7, 8 years ago, a little bit different culture than we live in now. It wasn't that as big of a deal as it is now. But, this is me, going out in public and speaking on what it means to be a Catholic and speaking on an issue that was important to me, but particularly important to my wife. My wife became involved in the pro-life movement, would volunteer at pregnancy life centers, and so I said, well, of course, if a priest calls you can't say no, right? So I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I went to Mass that day. It was on a Monday. I went to Mass that day thinking, what am I going to say? I'm going to be speaking to thousands of people. I'm nervous. Now I'm nervous. What am I going to say, God? And I was like, speak to me. And that day the gospel at Mass was the Gospel of Matthew, where it says, whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters, you do unto me. And I was like, oh, God, you're speaking to me. Thank you. Answered prayer, right? If you're talking about the unborn, you're talking about the least of my brothers and sisters, right? So now I'm feeling great. So I drive down to Annapolis that night. We have Mass at the cathedral down there, and same gospel reading, right? Another Catholic joke. Don't worry about it. Don't laugh. Same gospel reading that night, and the Archbishop reads the gospel, and he gives a homily, and he talks about the least of my brothers and sisters, and that's what we're doing here. That's why we're marching on the State House. We're standing up for the least of my brothers and sisters. And I thought, son of a gun, he stole my stuff. How can you do that, right? So now I'm all nervous, right? I got to speak and lie in front of all these people, and I don't know what I'm going to say. And so we start marching from the church over to the State House, and I'm marching next to this woman. She was the Christian DJ in town, and I just asked her. I said, "So why are you here?" And I really didn't care about the answer because I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to say. And she said, "I'm an abortion survivor." And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't know what that means." She said, "When I was 18 years old, I had an abortion." She said, "It's the worst thing I've ever done." She said, "It still hurts. The pain is still real. I regret it every single day. And I want to make sure that as many women as possible avoid that grave mistake." And then it kind of just hit me, It was like, man, because I've been pro-life my whole life. We all start off pro-life. Try to explain to an 8-year-old about abortion. You can't do it. It's impossible. But God gave us the ability of free will and to reason and to rationalize, and we've basically, some of us have been screwing, the human race, we've been screwing that up since the Garden of Eden. So when I said, here I am, I'm going to, whatever, I play for the Ravens, I'm a football player, who cares? Like, who really cares what I have to say? I was like, here's a woman who's had an abortion and who says you shouldn't do it. And that night I met hundreds, maybe thousands of women stood up and were abortion survivors. And for me, that really lit the flame inside of me that, okay, I say I'm Catholic. I said I was Catholic forever, but I really wasn't. Now I'm a practicing Catholic. But now, like, what am I going to do? Like, what am I going to do? I'm just going to go to church on Sundays and put some money in the plate, and then that's it. Then I'm good. Then I'm going to go on and just live the rest of my life, kind of I'm going to be a good person and, by the ways of the world, and then just go back. Like, you need to put your faith into action, right? Like, Jesus was pretty hard on the people who just sat there and knew all about the faith and judged other people and said do this and said don't do this, but didn't really do anything. So I was like, well, I better do something, right? So I kind of teamed up with my wife, and we did some things in the pro-life movement quietly. You don't need to draw a bunch of attention to yourself. So that goes on for a couple years, and then lo and behold, Ravens, we went up to Foxborough Stadium, waxed Tom Brady and the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. I mean, like, really thumped them. It was like a beating. It was a beating. And went and won the Super Bowl, beat the San Francisco 49ers about 6 years ago. If you remember the Super Bowl where the lights went out, that was the game. And you win the Super Bowl. And then I retired because I was old and everything was good. And so I'm kind of at home for a few months, retired, doing whatever retired people do. And President Obama at the time was the first sitting president, and he addressed Planned Parenthood. And he said, he ended his speech, he said, "God bless Planned Parenthood." And, I will say this, I do have the, easier for me, being a football player, retired football player, having money in the bank, and I guess football, you kind of do a lot, you have a lot of leeway. You don't have to, none of you do, but you don't really have to subscribe to the kind of the laws or the political correctness of society, right? I mean, I'm like wearing shorts and a t-shirt every day. I'm not going to an office. And I just remember when he said it, I thought, that's just an asinine thing to say. If you want to be pro-abortion, you can be pro-abortion. But I thought, hey, the President of the United States says, "God bless Planned Parenthood." I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And a lot of this is coming from, I'll admit, it's probably coming from pride. I was like, that's just stupid. So 2 days after that speech, a little card shows up in the mail. It says, "You've been invited to the White House," right? The Baltimore Ravens have been invited to the White House. And I just, at that time, my wife and I were pretty active in the pro-life movement. We had our kids were of age where we would talk about abortion. And there's just, there's just something inside of me. I wanted no part of that. So I just checked the little box no and sent it back in. And I didn't make a big deal out of it. I didn't announce it to anybody. So a couple months later, I'm at the gym trying to lose weight, and I look up on the TV, and it says, "Ravens visit the White House." And I was like, oh, that was today. And I'm looking up there, and I see like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed and Joe Flacco, and I'm like, oh, it looks like they're having fun. That's cool. That's it. Like, it was like, doesn't bother me. Doesn't affect my life at all. And then my phone rings that afternoon. And it's one of these reporters, the sports reporters. And, "Oh, well, you were the only guy that didn't come to the White House. Why didn't you go?" I was like, I was just really busy. They're like, "No, you're retired. You're not busy." I was like, "No, I'm busy. I got stuff to do around here. There's dishes to be done, laundry to be done. I got stuff to do." And then another guy calls, and another guy, and they're pressing me. Like, "Why aren't you here?" And I said, "Hey, you know what? Maybe." I had nothing to be ashamed of. And in today's day and age, it's kind of hard to run and hide from anybody. So I just said, you know what? Main reason I didn't go is because my wife and I are really pro-life. We're active in the movement, and I didn't appreciate what the president said, and so we just respectfully declined. Well, that's when I had experienced firsthand the 24-hour news cycle. It was like all of a sudden, right? And I understand, I'm an offensive lineman. Nobody really cares about offensive linemen. That's fine. I'm totally fine with that. But now all of a sudden, and it's the NFL offseason, so they're looking. Now it becomes like this huge story. Now I'm doing live TV on Fox News. Okay, that went pretty well. Now I'm doing live TV on CNN. Well, that didn't go so well. And there's all these articles being written. There's all this social media flying around and all these comments. And, it's like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, my gosh, And here's just amazing to me. Now people say, well, that must have been, and there's times where it was a little bit unnerving. Probably upset my wife more than me. Probably upset some of my kids more than me. I mean, I'm a football player. I can take it. And I guess I'd say this, though. Anytime I ever felt a little bit rattled by that, I would say, wait a second. Let's go back to what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the fundamental, I don't know if you want to call it an issue. I'd quote St. Teresa of Calcutta. She said, if abortion is not a sin, then what is? What is? It's been so normalized throughout our country the last 40 plus years. But when you think about it, that a human being can be killed by another human being, that's what it is. And that's legal. That's legal. That sea turtle eggs in Florida have more protective rights than babies in the womb. That's ridiculous, right? So I was standing in the truth. I could stand confidently and take any kind of criticism and name calling and whatever else anybody wanted to do. And I say all that to say this. Today, in today's society, and this is crazy times. These are crazy times. I'm sure you guys know. You can't be anti-anything except anti-Catholic. Like, it's acceptable for a lot of people, for a lot of groups. You can be anti-Catholic. There's a target on us. And it totally makes sense, right? Like, if Satan's persistent and he's going to try to take it all down, where's he going to go? Right? Is he going to go to the Methodist church? Is he going to go to a football stand? He's going right for the pillar of truth. He's going to the church and to our faith to try to take it down. And so sooner or later, if you are Catholic, you will be challenged. You will have to take a stand. You will have to declare what you believe in. And it'll hurt. It'll hurt a little bit on the front end, but not on the back end. What I do now is, technically I am a CEO. I have a company. I do a fair amount of keynote speaking, business consulting, presentation coaching, strategic planning, those types of things. And there have been times that I have been hired by clients to do a job, and where they send in the check and everything's going well, and then before the event or before we start working together, they call back and they say, really sorry, but one of our VPs did a Google search, and they don't like your views on they think you discriminate against, because I've also been called, and I guess outspoken. I don't know, somebody asked me to write an op-ed about the marriage amendment that was going on in Maryland and Minnesota, and I wrote an op-ed defending the institution of marriage between one man and one woman. And so they say, they don't like your pro-life views, they don't like your marriage views, we don't want to work with you anymore. I say, that's okay. And then they say, can you send the check back too? Right? After I already have it under account. Of course, I always send it back. I don't need the money that bad. But you will, if you want to be Catholic, and here's where it's hard. Here's where it's hard, not just as a professional, but I think as a person. See, and you guys have all your hopes and dreams in front of you, right? And that's awesome. That's awesome. But here's where it becomes really hard is, like when I was in college, I was busy focusing on a lot of these things, a lot of these worldly things. And when I was in the NFL, when I started, I was doing the same thing. And even today, we try to live these lives of duality, where I've got one foot over here in my faith, but I've also got one foot over here in the world. And I kind of try to be two different people. Like, when I'm over here, I'll wear my Catholic hat, but then when I'm over here in the workplace, right, I'm just working. And I don't mean walking into work, quoting Bible verses and saying, amen, hallelujah, and all that stuff. But what I'm saying is, I think where all of us human beings fall down is we kind of try to be everything, and we end up half-assing everything. That's what ends up happening. And slowly but surely, we kind of get more over to this side of the ways of the world, and we don't live out our faith. We're not who God calls us to be. We're all children of God. That's who we all are. But we get distracted by careers and grad school and money and sending my kid to this school and all that. And it's hard. It's hard. Here's why I love the Catholic faith. Because life beats you up, and there's a lot of stuff coming at you. Here's what I love about the Catholic faith. When I got drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, I thought like I was NFL, I was ready to play. We had another guy drafted that year. His name was Randy Moss. Maybe you've heard of him. A little bit? Okay. So he was like NFL ready. Well, I thought I'm NFL ready. So my first play, the first practice, my job was they called the play in the huddle. We broke the huddle. I went up, and I was supposed to block John Randall. Okay? John Randall's in the Hall of Fame. John Randall's a scary dude. Scary dude. I was a Vikings fan. I knew John Randall. But I'm thinking to myself, this is great. First NFL play. Everybody's making fun of me because I went to Harvard. I'm going to lock John Randall down, right? I'm going to lock him down. This will be like the greatest play in the history of the world. And then no one's going to make any more fun of me. And I'm just prove to everybody that I'm here to stay in the NFL. So I'm down in my stance, and the ball snapped. And you're supposed to, as an offensive lineman, you're supposed to punch the defensive lineman in his chest, right? That's what you want to do, right, guys? You want to punch him in his chest, right? Well, I wasn't going to punch John in his chest. I was going to punch John so hard that my hands were going to go through his chest and come out his back. That's how hard I was going to punch him, in my mind. So the ball snapped. I come out, and I went, and I punched as hard as I could. But I closed my eyes because I was really scared. John Randall's a bad dude, okay? And I closed my eyes, and I reached out, and I didn't feel anything. And that's a bad feeling for an offensive lineman because essentially your job is just get in that guy's way. And when you go like this and you don't feel anything, you're like, what happened? And I opened my eyes, and John was no longer in front of me. John was to the side of me and kind of basically untouched to the quarterback. You can try this later on in the lobby or back at your room or whatever. Have somebody in front of you and say, I want you to try to get to there, and try not to touch them. It's almost impossible, but I did it. So my first play in the NFL was a lookout block, right, where I just said, look out. And shortly after, it was after that first practice, the offensive line coach pulled me aside. He said, yeah, you're not good enough to play a tackle in the NFL. It's like, yeah. You're not good enough to play guard either. It's like, okay, that might be a little harsh. He said, I think your only chance is to play center. Have you ever played center before? I said, no, never. So what do you got to do? He said, well, first, the next afternoon practice, come out 5 minutes early. Quarterbacks will be out here. You can practice snapping the football to them. Okay, great. So I'm out there like 20 minutes early, pumping myself up. Hey, come on now, you can do this, you can do this. And waiting. Then 5 minutes before practice, here come the quarterbacks. We had Brad Johnson. We won a Super Bowl later on. We had Randall Cunningham. I mean, it was like these guys were doing this forever. I don't know how many snaps they ever took. I'm snapping the ball to them. Just practice snapping the football, right? You just bend over, put your hand on the ball. Quarterback puts his hands underneath you. Takes a little getting used to. And you just practice snapping the football. And you do that for 5 minutes. And that day, and every single day for 15 years in the NFL, I went out 5 minutes early and practiced snapping the football. Now, chances are if you watch football, you never hit the person next to you and say, oh my gosh, did you see how the center snapped the ball? That was perfect. How did he do that? The laces, they're perfect. Right? When's the only time you notice the snap? I'll help you. Like when it's on the ground or it's over his head, right? It's on the ground, and it's always the center's fault, never the quarterback's fault, right? Whatever. I think those guys could take responsibility once in a while. They're only making $100 million a year, right? But the snap, if you don't get the snap right, nothing else really matters, right? Later on that year, we were in training camp. John Randall's over me again, and he's beating me to the right, and he's beating me to the left, and he's running me over, and he's laughing at me, and I'm getting mad, and I start, so focused on him that I fumble a couple snaps. And our coach, Dennis Green, at the time called me over, and he's like, Matt, your number one job as the center is to get the ball to the quarterback. If you don't get the ball to the quarterback, we don't have a play, right? I don't even care if you don't block anybody. Just get the ball to the quarterback. So I'm not really blocking anybody right now, so I guess the least I could do is get the ball to the quarterback, right? But it's that important that you practice it every single day. So then the whistle blew, and I don't know how it is with the football team here, but when the whistle blows and practice officially starts, on the field, the quarterbacks are on the field and the running backs and the wide receivers and all the, the guys that are fast and athletic, and they're like linemen down in the corner. They send the linemen down in the corner, right? You never get on the 50-yard line, do you? No, they always send you down in the corner, right? And you get just this little area where you do your fundamental drills as an offensive lineman. So we had these things called shoots that if you've played high school football, you know what those are. You get in them and you get in your stance and you come out, and it makes you stay low. It's like trying to go underneath that table, basically. They teach you to stay low, and then we do these things. We'd get out these 10-foot-long boards. They were 1 foot wide, and we called them boards. And we'd put those in the chute, and we'd straddle those, and then we'd come out of our stance, and the boards made you keep your feet apart, because if you get your feet together, then you get pushed over. Right? I'm pretty sure the NFL is like the highest level of football. I don't think there's a super NFL or anything like that. And every single day for 15 years, I went out 5 minutes early and practiced snapping the football. And then I went down in the corner, and we went in the chutes, and we came out on the boards. The reason why you do the chutes is it teaches you to stay low. Leverage is important. It's on line play. They always say low man wins. It's all about leverage. I know that I played quarterback, this would be a much more interesting talk, but I'm just telling you how a lineman's world, okay? Right? Every single day for 15 years. So fast forward that day till the very last day of my career. We waxed the Patriots. Did I mention that already? We waxed the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. So now we have 13 days before the Super Bowl. We're feeling pretty good about ourselves, and it's like, oh my gosh, like the Super Bowl. This is a big deal. There's like a bazillion people watching, and oh my gosh. So we go into work the next day, and the coach comes in. He says, hey, guys, great job yesterday. We all hate the Patriots. Our game's in 13 days. He says, the first play we're going to run in the Super Bowl is dot right 40 gut. Okay, dot right 40 gut. That's all. That's how we call the play. I mean, I know a lot of times they have quarterbacks, and Peyton Manning was famous. He'd be yelling all these things, Omaha, yeah, I don't know what all that means. We were dumb. We just said dot right 40 gut. It's a real simple play. Everybody has dot right 40 gut. I coach 5th grade football and 3rd grade tackle football. Yes, I'm a bad parent. My kids play tackle football. And we have dot right 40 gut, okay? All it is every offensive lineman takes 1 step to the right. You block the guy that's in your gap. The running back takes 1 step to the right. He gets the handoff, and he just tries to find a crease and get yards, right? Move ball forward. That's what we do in football. Move ball forward. Score ball, okay? So it was weird for 2 reasons. One, they never told us the play or plays 13 days or 6 days or 2 days before the game. They'd always tell us the night before the game in your meetings. They give you a list. They say, hey, here's the first 15 plays. Everybody in the NFL does this. Here's the first 15 plays we're running tomorrow. Make sure you know them and you like them, and go to bed. And the second thing is that this was a day 1 play. I was like, dot right 40 gut? Really? Like, did you spend all night trying to think of that? Dot right 40 gut. There's nothing to it. Well, we practiced all week in Baltimore. Then we fly to New Orleans, and that whole second week, you're just kind of hoping nobody gets arrested and everybody shows up to the game on time. We did. Nobody got arrested. Everybody showed up to the stadium on time. It's God Bless America. It's national anthem. It's, flyovers. And then finally, after waiting 2 weeks, it's time to kick the ball off. And ball's kicked off, and then there's a long TV timeout, $4 million every 30 seconds. We were like in the huddle saying, that was $4 million. There's another $4 million. There's another. We're like, man, they're making a lot of money in this NFL deal, right? So finally, the ref says, all right, let's go. And our quarterback, Joe Flacco, comes in. He says, guys, you already know. That was it. Didn't even call the play. And we went up to the line, and we ran dot right 40 gut. It was a pretty unspectacular play. I think we got 3 yards. Pretty sure my guy made the tackle. And, it was in the center, man. It was, I didn't really know where to go. Anyways, here's the point. If you, back then, we didn't use drones for filming it, but if you'd had a drone over the field filming everything that was going on, and you were to film that play, and then you were to run it back, and you were to remove from the video, film. I'm 42. We had film. You were to remove all the people in the stands, all the coaches and other players on the sidelines, and if you were to remove every other player on the field, the defensive guys, the offensive guys, and just leave me there. You know what I was doing? All I was doing is I was snapping the football, I was in the chutes, and I was coming out on the boards. All I was trying to do was execute the fundamentals that I'd practiced every single day for the last 15 years. People ask me, what's it like to play in the Super Bowl? And I'm a huge sports fan, some part of me just thinks that like great players go out there and they just do it, right? Like LeBron James is different than me and you, most of you, all of you. He's different, right? Like he just goes out there and does it, right? Or at least that's what it seems like. But people say, what's it like to play in the Super Bowl? I said, I don't know. I don't even really know if I know. Because I wasn't thinking, oh my gosh, I'm playing in the Super Bowl, right? If I'd have thought of that, I probably wouldn't have made it out of the locker room. To tell you the truth, that's pretty scary. I said, all I was trying to do is execute the fundamentals that I'd practiced every single day for 15 years. And you know what? In football, nobody's ever played a perfect game, ever. And it's never easy. It's never pretty. Every play you have in the playbook, everything's drawn up to score a touchdown. Every single play. Somebody say, geez Louise, it's amazing. Every one of these plays is supposed to go to the end zone, and yet we score like twice a game. Like, kind of make fun of the coaches. Like, do you really, right? Like in theory, everything's supposed to work. Especially you play offensive line. I mean, it's a battle, right? It's hard. You're grunting, sweating, you get injured, you get hurt. You got to keep going. You got to play the play. It's like that. Executing the fundamentals for 15 years. That's what I love about the Catholic faith, right? We've got all the fundamentals. We've got the Mass. We've got the Eucharist. We've got confession. We've got adoration. We've got the Rosary. We have all these things at our disposal that we can practice over and over and over. And we're never going to be perfect. But we know if we cling to those fundamentals, that's the best chance we have. And we don't need to judge ourselves. You always say in football, don't judge, just play, right? You had a bad play. So what? Next play. Go back to your fundamentals. It's the same in life, right? Yeah, we even have the saints, It's like the Catholic Hall of Fame. Like you want to see what it looks like? They'll be like one of those people. That's what I love about the faith, is it has the fundamentals. It has the framework to live a great life. And when I say a great life, it's not being an NFL player. It's not being a CEO. It's not making millions of dollars. It's about being who God made you to be, right? That's what it's about. And so I would urge every one of you, as you are in college, and I know you have full lives. I'm not trying to patronize. I'm not trying to talk to you like you're kids, because you're not. You're adults. But as you go out and start your professional lives, and things got more real when you went from high school to college. Things get a little bit more real when you go from college to the real world, whatever that means. Coming from a guy who avoided the real world for 15 years by playing in the NFL. So take it for what it's worth. But cling to those fundamentals, because not only is it that's your path to greatness, but you're going to need it. You're going to need it along the way. Bad things are going to happen. You're going to be targets. You're going to be successful. There's always jealousy, people trying to take people down. But practice your faith. It will guide you professionally. It will guide you in your marriages. It will guide you when you're parents. Trust me, you want to talk about feeling helpless. Okay, I have 8 kids, 3 teenage daughters. Woo! Yeah, pray for me. Pray for me. Huh? It will guide you. Because I hate to tell you, but life only gets, I think it only gets harder. I think it probably only gets harder. But it gets better too. So be tough, be strong, and be Catholic. Thank you very much.
Where's Abby? It's on now,
Thank you very much. I know that we have some questions, but first of all,
I'm not snapping that football to you. Shotgun only.
I'm going to ask Matt to sign this ball, and then, we will keep it here in our university since it's such an honor. And please, let's give him another round of applause.
I can write an answer. Go ahead.
Okay. We have 5 more minutes, and then I know Netflix is calling you. You've got to go. But if you don't want me to call you by name to stand up and ask a question, We have two microphones. I know that we need to have a couple of questions, so who's going first? I don't see somebody. I said, I have to single you out. Who's going to ask the first question? Wow, I'm impressed. Ladies, show who's really scaring the fancy. Okay, there you go. First question down there.
As a player in the NFL, how do you think your faith has shaped how you viewed your team?
How I viewed my team? That's a great question. Yeah, I think that my faith made me think, makes me think less about myself, so more about how I can be a better teammate. But it was kind of interesting the year that we did win the Super Bowl, and I don't think the Super Bowl really, doesn't validate anything necessarily. I mean, that game came down to basically a 4th and goal. San Francisco had the ball, and they just threw a jump ball to a receiver in the end zone. It's called a 50-50 ball. He catches it, we lose. He doesn't catch it, we win. Some 49ers fans thought it was pass interference. I personally thought it was a great no call, and we won. Doesn't validate anything, but here's what I'll say. On that team, our head coach, John Harbaugh, happens to be a strong Catholic, and we had a veteran team, which I think you could say correlates to a lot of men who are more developed in their faith. And for a couple years, we had really heartbreaking losses in the playoffs, and we used to talk about that wouldn't discourage us. I remember the year before we won the Super Bowl, we were in Foxborough. We'd lost a heartbreaker. I mean, literally the ball was in our fingertips and we lost it. And we said, we're a lot of teams, I've been on teams like that before, and there's guys crying in the locker room, and you come back the next year and you're still whatever, you go 6-10. We said, guys, John Harbaugh said, guys, I don't know where this ends. I don't know what happens next year, but I know this. There's a reason why we're all together. And so, right, as people of faith, that's how we think. That's how we look at the world. There's a reason for everything. Might not be what we wanted. We might not understand, but we know that God has a reason for everything. And so I think when you approach, whether it's your team or you approach your life that way, right? It's just one, it's the truth, and two, it's just a far healthier way to approach whatever obstacles there are. You're not going to get discouraged or derailed by adversity.
Thank you.
Hi, can you describe how your faith helped you throughout your life in your lows?
In my lows?
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure can. I mean, it would kind of be similar to that answer, but there's a reason for everything. I mean, one particular game, we had it won. We had a third, and we were playing the Chicago Bears. They hadn't done anything on our defense all day. Offensively, we didn't play that well, but we were up. We were up 4 points, and we had a 3rd and 10 with 2 minutes left. All I had to do was, not to get too football technical, not that football's a technical game, because basically, right, you have 11 guys on the field, and the dumbest guy has to know what you're doing, so you can't get too technical. But all I had to do was snap the ball and block back on this guy. It was just it's 3rd and 10. We were just going to run it up the middle and then punt, and there was no way that they were going to go the length of the field and beat our defense. Well, for whatever reason, I thought the guy was going to play me one way. I kind of outsmarted myself, just stupid. And this guy just blows up the field, and he literally hits the running back as he's getting the ball, fumble, scoop it up, they go down, and they score. And we basically lost the game because of me. And I remember that was, I was driving home. I don't know how I got home. I was so, oh my gosh, that's a bad feeling when you let all your teammates down, when there's 70,000 people in the stadium who, kind of know that it was your fault. That was rough. And so I'm just, kind of said, God, I don't know. I said, just, give me the strength, because it's that night, and then it's the next day after games. You go in and you watch the film as a team. So all your good plays, everyone's like, oh man, great play. And then your bad plays, right? Coaches coach you up, chew you out, whatever. And I had to watch that play in front of the entire team and, basically own it. And so I was like, all right, God, give me the strength to get through this day, this next day when I have to go watch the film room. The film room, it's a daunting place for football players. And so you say, well, what good came out of that? Well, I like to think that, the only way you can forge character is through hard times. I think Helen Keller said that. I agree with that. But the other thing, too, is that was called the back block, the block that I missed. And I vowed that I would never, ever miss another back block in the rest of my career in practice or a game. And I played 5 years after that. And I can honestly tell you, I never missed a back block. So it's kind of a nice story with a little bow on it. You know.
All right, thank you. You said growing up that you were kind of seen as by the people around you as, you know, an out of shape kid, someone who struggled with their studies. And, you know, with that kind of environment and judgments being thrown at you, how did you mentally get past this view of yourself to become, you know, one of the greatest, going to Harvard, going to the NFL? What was the mental process in getting over that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, yeah, I mean, again, I grew up in the 80s. I don't know, we really didn't talk about bullying or anything like that. Was I bullied? Yeah, I guess I was. I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood, there were tons of kids. There were lots of kids that were older than me, right? There was no camera phones. So older kids can beat up younger kids and, you know, stuff happens. I mean, I guess I can say this honestly. I mean, through all that, I mean, I knew I was a fat kid. Did it bother me? No, not really. I mean, I knew I wasn't a great athlete. Did it bother me? No, not really. And I think it is because of my Catholic faith. I think it's because going to Catholic school, because at least I knew, like, right? I knew I was special. And I don't mean special like how we tell everybody, oh, you're special. No, I mean, I knew I was special because I knew God made me. I knew what he did for me. And I knew what he expected of me. So, I mean, you know, and some people might say, well, just maybe you're naturally more resistant to that or whatever. I don't know. I mean, like, again, I know when I think back to my childhood, and this is going to sound kind of goofy, but like I knew God had a plan for me, right? And so, I mean, I didn't like getting beat up sometimes, you know. I didn't like being made fun of. My nickname was Beef in the neighborhood. It's a pretty good nickname for a fat kid, huh? It's pretty cool, right? It's pretty creative, at least. But yeah, I think it does go back to knowing, at least having, you know, those pilings driven deep of my faith. You know, those seeds planted that I knew that I was a child of God. It's a great question. Yeah.
Down there.
You mentioned many times to all of us, you are children of God. And my question for you, when you discovered that truth in your life, how that changed your life basically, and you became the man you are today?
I mean, I think it was gradual. I'll tell you where I think that's probably been. I'm gonna kind of change the question a little bit, or where I think that's become more for me, especially with this very volatile environment that we live in, and with social media and everything, and you get involved in, if you're involved in the pro-life movement, like, it can get very emotional sometimes. We're all children of God. Catholics, atheists, right? Republicans, Democrats. We're all children of God. And I think that, I don't know, maybe it's just because of the stage in my life, right? I'm 42, and it's kind of like, when I think, okay, if we're all children of God, because I like to, you know, especially when the truth is on your side. I mean, I don't mind getting into a debate. I don't mind going on CNN. I don't mind talking to people at a party and trying to, you know, Ben Shapiro them. You know what I mean? That's pride. But what I say was, I think it gets back to understanding that we're all children of God. And I'm fortunate, and I'd say all of you are fortunate. You've been exposed to the Catholic faith, and you go to Catholic University. Not everybody has those opportunities, right? Not everybody's had the same experiences, comes from the same places. You never know. So for me, I think understanding that I'm a child of God as well as everybody else, I think has helped me have more understanding, compassion, and in a lot of cases, mercy for others. And I mean, I got a ways to go on that, but I think that that's helped me. Thank you.